At 11:48 p.m., my phone lit up the way lightning cuts through a still southern night, sudden, blinding, and impossible to ignore. The text was from my mother. "Evelyn Monroe, we've talked it over. You're no longer part of this family. No greeting, no explanation, just a verdict." A few seconds later, another notification blinked beneath it, a tiny red heart from my younger sister, Caroline. She had liked the message. In that single tap, she'd turned betrayal into a group activity. Outside, the cicadas were still singing. Inside, the air felt heavy, thick with the kind of silence that makes you notice the hum of the refrigerator and the pulse behind your eyes. I stared at the message for a long moment, waiting for disbelief to feel like denial. It never came. I didn't text back. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop. The login screen reflected my face calm. Unreadable, the face I'd learned to wear at Sunday dinners when Mom corrected my posture in front of everyone. Or when Caroline bragged about another vacation I'd quietly financed. I typed in my password, fingers steady, and pulled up every account I'd ever managed for them: the mortgage, the insurance, the car note, the college tuition plan. All of it. Click, cancel, confirm, over and over. By 12:03 a.m., the Monroe's world began to dim, one auto payment at a time. It was strange how peace could sound like a mouse click. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen painting the walls in soft blue. For years, I'd told myself that love was measured by what you gave, not what you got, that keeping the family afloat was my purpose, my inheritance. But that night, watching digital receipts vanish one by one, I realized something simple and merciless. It had never been love. It had been a subscription, and I'd been the only one paying the bill. A laugh caught in my throat, dry, bitter, almost unfamiliar. Somewhere between exhaustion and clarity, it hit me that my mother's text wasn't a declaration. It was permission. Permission to stop saving people who enjoyed drowning. The phone buzzed again, another heart from Caroline, this time on a family photo she'd posted 6 months ago. Caption: "Blood is everything." I almost smiled at the irony. "Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know where you're listening from, because maybe you've been here too. Maybe you've been the quiet one, the fixer, the steady heartbeat that kept everyone else alive while you forgot your own pulse. Maybe you've had to turn the lights off on people who called it love but treated it like ownership. If you have, then you'll understand what came after that night when silence stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like proof." Morning came soft and cruel, sunlight leaking through the blinds like it had nothing to apologize for. The world had the nerve to keep moving. My phone, still face down on the table, sat silent as a tombstone. No missed calls, no new messages, just proof that exile can be quiet. I made coffee the way I always did: 2 sugars, 1 cream. Same mug I'd used since college, and for a moment, the routine almost tricked me into thinking life was still ordinary. But ordinary had left the night before, right along with my last illusion of family. I stared at the steam curling upward, and memories came in waves. Not soft ones, the kind that crash, pull you under, and spit you back out somewhere you don't recognize. I was 8 when I first learned what guilt could buy. Mom had been standing in the kitchen, hands deep in dishwater, when she said, "Your daddy works too hard to worry about bills. Be a good girl and don't ask for new shoes this year." I nodded, bare toes curled against the cold tile, already learning that love meant silence. Years later, after Dad's first stroke, I covered the hospital deposit. I was 24, living paycheck to paycheck, and Mom called me her guardian angel. I remember how proud that made me feel, like I'd earned my place at the table again. Angels don't ask to be thanked. They just keep saving. Then came Caroline, sweet, reckless, golden Caroline. The kind of sister who could set the house on fire and still be handed the matches back. She crashed her car junior year. Mom called crying, "Lila, you know how hard she's been trying. Just help her this once." Once turned into forever. By the time I was 30, I'd wired money for her tuition, her rent, her emergencies, the plural kind that arrive monthly. Every transaction came with the same benediction from Mom. Family doesn't keep score. But I did. Quietly. Secretly. Each sacrifice filed away somewhere between resentment and loyalty. Dad tried to stay out of it. That was his specialty, survival through absence. When I'd call, he'd lower his voice like a man caught trespassing in his own life. "You know how your mother gets," he'd say, and I did. She got whatever she wanted. The day she texted me out of the family, I realized she'd simply put in writing what she'd practiced for years, conditional love with no refund policy. I looked around my apartment. Neat to the point of obsession labeled boxes, color-coded folders, receipts aligned by date. Every corner of my life was ordered. Precise. My therapist once called it a coping mechanism. I preferred the term insurance. When your childhood is chaos, order becomes the only God you trust. But that morning, the order turned on me. Every neatly filed receipt looked like a confession. Every automatic payment a signature of my own surrender. I poured another cup of coffee and sat at my desk, staring at the monitor's blank glow. The cursor blinked. Patient. Expectant. Without thinking, I opened a new spreadsheet. Title: The Monroe Ledger. Columns: date, amount, reason, proof. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard, then began to type. Rent, mortgage, tuition, repairs. Every dollar was a memory, and every memory came with a story I hadn't told. Halfway down the page, I stopped. A laugh slipped out dry, sharp, uninvited. I realized I wasn't angry. I was auditing. For years, I'd told myself that endurance was love, that if I just kept giving, they'd see I was worth keeping. But endurance isn't love. It's survival dressed up as devotion. The spreadsheet blinked back at me, half-filled, clinical. For the first time in my life, I felt something like clarity. Mom's voice echoed in my mind. Family doesn't keep score. Maybe not. But I was done pretending. If love had been the debt, tonight I was finally learning how to collect. By nightfall, the silence in my apartment had shape and weight, like another person sitting across from me, waiting for me to speak first. The glow of my screen painted the room in cold light. The new spreadsheet opened like an open wound, rows of numbers where affection used to live. I scrolled through the list, 27 entries. Each one a receipt for a time I mistook obligation for love. I should have felt anger. Instead, I felt precision. Somewhere deep in that quiet, I remembered Grandma Rose, her soft southern drawl, her porch lined with geraniums, the way she'd press a lemon drop into my palm when Mom's words cut too deep. "Love don't mean payin' everybody's bills, baby," she once told me, voice low and certain. "Love means teachin' folks to stand on their own feet, even if they curse your name for it." I'd laughed then, too young to understand. Tonight, the memory landed like a verdict. I typed another line into the ledger, adding the hospital deposit I'd paid after Dad's stroke, the one I'd covered without hesitation. He'd never asked how I managed it, only said, "You're a good girl, Lila. You always take care of us." I used to think that sentence was praise. Now I knew it was permission. The kettle whistled on the stove, sharp and sudden, snapping me out of thought. I poured the water, watched it swirl dark through the tea leaves. Steam rose between me and the screen like smoke from a burned bridge. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about arithmetic of the soul, what I gave, what they took, and the long, quiet difference between the two. I leaned forward and added one more column to the right, paid in full. I marked each line with a date and a check mark. I didn't know who I was forgiving, them or myself. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere beyond the river. Rain began to fall, light at first, then steady, drumming against the windows. I remembered sitting in Grandma's house during storms like this, her voice steady above the wind. The Lord don't shout when he's fixin' something. He works quiet. Maybe this was that kind of fixing the quiet kind? I closed the spreadsheet and saved it under a new name, Monroe Debts, emotional and otherwise. Then I sat back and let the storm take over the soundtrack. My reflection wavered on the glass half shadow, half survivor. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the caretaker, the provider, the family's safety net. I felt like a woman taking inventory of her own worth. It hit me then. Soft but certain, maybe love isn't measured in sacrifice at all. Maybe it's measured in boundaries, the lines you draw to protect the parts of yourself no one ever thanked you for giving. I whispered it aloud, just to hear how it sounded in the room that used to echo with guilt. Enough. And for once, it felt like a prayer that belonged to me. The next morning started with the sound of my phone vibrating itself off the counter. It buzzed, fell, and kept buzzing. I didn't need to check the screen to know who it was. Calls stacked on calls. Mom, Dad, Caroline, each name glowing like a warning flare. I watched them light up and fade out, one by one, like little funerals. When the ringing stopped, the messages began. You're overreacting. You're tearing this family apart. Your mother didn't mean it that way. Control disguised as concern. Manipulation wrapped in apology. Not one of them said the word sorry. I scrolled through each message, calm as a banker closing an account. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the ledger from the night before and began adding new lines timestamps of every call I ignored. It was petty. Maybe. But it felt good to keep the record straight. By noon, Mom moved her performance online. A new post on Facebook appeared, framed by a filtered picture of Sunday sunlight through the church window. Some children forget their roots when they start thinking money makes them better. Pride comes before destruction. 32 likes in an hour, mostly from relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years. A digital amen chorus. I almost laughed. Then I took a screenshot. Documentation. Always documentation. I made lunch, but couldn't taste a thing. The quiet of my apartment was too big, the kind of silence that begged to be filled with noise. I poured a glass of water and stared at the condensation sliding down, thinking of all the years I'd spent filling their needs the way water fills cracks shapeless, obedient, essential. That's when I called Tessa Boyd. We'd met freshman year of college, two Southern girls with different kinds of mothers and the same kind of ache. Tessa had become a family attorney. I'd become the person my family called instead of one. She answered on the second ring, voice sharp and awake, like someone who'd been waiting for this call. "Lila, I think I'm done being the accountant," I said. There was a pause, and then her voice softened. "Then start gathering receipts. We'll make it official." After we hung up, I opened every folder on my laptop. Years of emails, screenshots, transfers, receipts. The evidence of a lifetime spent holding everyone else's world together. The longer I scrolled, the more I saw patterns: repeated withdrawals, overlapping requests, emotional blackmail disguised as emergencies. It hit me that I had been raised to manage chaos that wasn't mine. My mother's panic had been my calendar. My sister's failures had been my budget. My father's silence had been my cue to fix things quietly. Now, for the first time, I was building something for myself, a paper trail of truth. Outside, the clouds were thickening, the kind of southern sky that turns the air metallic before a storm. I opened the window and let the wind in. It smelled like rain and freedom. My phone buzzed again. Caroline this time. "You can't just walk away from family." I typed a reply, then deleted it. If I'd learned anything, it was that silence could be strategy. As the first drops hit the glass, I whispered, "Let it rain." The storm broke fast, hard rain, steady thunder, like the sky was exhaling everything I'd held in for years. I sat back in the chair, feeling the pulse of it through the walls, and thought of Grandma Rose again. The Lord don't shout when he's fixing something. He works quiet. Maybe justice was the same way: slow, deliberate, Inevitable. I closed my laptop, the hum of the rain louder than my heartbeat, and felt something close to peace. Not forgiveness, not yet, but momentum. The kind that comes right before everything changes. The rain lasted all night, drumming on the roof like a metronome keeping time with my pulse. When I woke, the storm had passed, but the air still felt electric, charged with something unfinished. I sat at the kitchen table, a mug of cold coffee beside my laptop, and opened the folder labeled Monroe Ledger. The screen blinked to life, rows of transactions glowing like confession lines. Rent, tuition, insurance, gas. Every dollar was a sentence. Every sentence was a truth I had once been too scared to speak. By noon, I'd organized everything: dates, accounts, screenshots, even the emails where Mom called me her angel. Funny word, angel. It sounds holy until you realize it's just another way to say someone who saves you for free. The knock on the door startled me. It wasn't Mom or Caroline, it was a courier, a thick envelope, no return address. Inside, a single piece of paper from Tessa Boyd. Her handwriting was neat. Deliberate draft attached, read carefully before sending. You're reclaiming, not revenging. I opened the file she'd emailed earlier. Subject: outstanding balances. Monroe family account body. This serves as formal notice of reimbursement due. You have 30 days to arrange a repayment plan before legal action is initiated. Supporting documents attached. No anger, no threats, just facts, wrapped in civility. It was surgical, lethal in its precision. I hesitated for a moment, finger hovering over send. My heart thudded once, hard, like it wanted to warn me that this was the point of no return. But then I saw the date on the first line of the ledger, the hospital deposit from Dad's stroke, and the ache in my chest turned to steel. Click. Sent. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was alive. It didn't take long. Within minutes, my phone began lighting up again. First, Dad. Sweetheart. This is getting out of hand. Let's keep this private. Then, Mom. How could you do this to us after everything we've done for you? Then, Caroline. Predictably dramatic. You're insane. You're ruining the family. I didn't answer any of them. I just watched the screen until the glow faded, then reopened the spreadsheet. Each name that called was a new entry under a new column I'd added reactions. By sunset. I was exhausted but calm. I poured a glass of water, stared at the ceiling fan turning slow above me, and tried to remember the last time I'd felt this steady. The world outside was quiet except for the soft hum of traffic far off, the rhythm of people living lives that didn't revolve around apology. At 8:17 p.m., a new message arrived from Tessa. Call me when you're ready. There's more. I dialed her number, and her voice came through crisp. Sure. Lila, we found something in the trust records. My throat tightened. Grandma's yes. The withdrawal records from 2 years ago, $40,000 transferred from the Rose Monroe Trust. The signature on the authorization form isn't yours. The room tilted. Or maybe it was just my breath catching. 40,000. The exact amount of the kitchen remodel Mom bragged about last summer. The new marble counters. The farmhouse sink she said she'd waited her whole life for. Tessa's tone softened. It's forgery. Lila, I can file an injunction by morning. It'll freeze their accounts until the court investigates. I pressed a hand to my chest, where anger and heartbreak tangled into something unrecognizable. My mother hadn't just stolen money. She'd stolen legacy. The trust Grandma built from years of waitressing, double shifts, saving every dime, was supposed to secure the next generation, not fund new countertops. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The only sound was the clock ticking, each second a quiet accusation. Finally, I whispered, do it. Are you sure? Yes, I said. She made it official when she texted me out of the family. I'm just answering in her language. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching streetlights flicker against wet pavement, listening to the city breathe. My hands trembled not from fear, but release. For years, my love had been currency. Now it was evidence. When the email confirmation came through at 1:04 a.m., injunction filed, assets frozen, I closed my laptop and let the darkness settle around me. The air smelled faintly of rain and something cleaner, sharper. I thought of Grandma Rose again, her voice like warm honey and steel. You can't save folks who enjoy their own drowning. Baby, you just let the water teach 'em. Maybe that's what this was. The water teaching them. I leaned my head against the cool glass and whispered. Lesson started. Somewhere. Thunder rolled again, distant, approving. The ledger sat open beside me, its columns complete. I added one final entry. Line 47 trust fund theft, $40,000 action legal. Then, beneath it, in smaller text, almost like a prayer love repaid in full. The morning after the injunction, the world looked ordinary again, too ordinary for what I'd just done. Sunlight slipped through the blinds in clean lines, cutting across the kitchen counter like evidence tags. My phone sat face down beside a half-eaten piece of toast, silent but heavy with missed calls, the calm before impact. At 9:12 a.m., it began. Dad first, his voice soft, rehearsed. Sweetheart, this is getting out of hand. Your mother's sick with worry. I stared out the window at the street below, the magnolia tree shifting in the wind. She made herself sick, I said quietly. I just stopped paying for the medicine. Then I hung up. By noon, Mom's Facebook lit up again. A new post, long and syrupy, dressed in scripture. We raised our daughter with love, but success can harden the heart. Pride comes before destruction. 64 likes, 14 comments. Most said praying for you. But then, beneath all the pity, a new voice appeared. Aunt Janine. Didn't Lila cover your mortgage when you almost lost the house? Or did pride erase that too? The thread went dead. The quiet that followed wasn't peace, it was exposure. By late afternoon, my inbox filled with new messages, some furious, some begging. Caroline wrote, "You're ruining us. Please stop." The same girl who had once hearted the text that exiled me now pleading for mercy. I read it twice, then deleted it. At 6:45 p.m., the buzzer rang. Sharp, insistent. I looked through the peephole. Evelyn. Her hair was uncombed, her eyes red, clutching an envelope like a peace offering. I opened the door halfway. "Lila," she whispered, voice trembling. "Please, we're losing everything. The bank froze the accounts. The house Caroline's scared. I didn't move." "So you came for her. She's your sister," Mom said, reaching out. "You've always taken care of us. You can fix this." The echo of that word fix hit something deep in me. It was the same word she'd used when Dad was sick, when Caroline failed a semester, when the lights went out and I wired the bill before they even asked. Fix. Always fix. I stepped back, just enough to grab the paper waiting on my table, a printed copy of the eviction notice Tessa had filed that morning. I handed it to her. "You'll get the official copy in 7 days," I said, her face drained of color. "You wouldn't? I already did," for a heartbeat. Neither of us moved. Then she searched my face like she was trying to find the old version of me, the one who forgave, who paid, who stayed quiet. She didn't find her. "You sound just like me," she whispered, bitter and soft. "I know," I said. "That's why it ends here." I closed the door slowly, the latch clicking like a final signature. On the other side, her footsteps faded, uneven, breaking the way storms do when they realize the thunder's done its job. Inside, I leaned against the wood, breath shallow, hands shaking. Justice doesn't always feel clean. Sometimes it feels like grief wearing a business suit. I walked to the window. The evening sky pale gold over the neighborhood roofs. My phone buzzed again, notifications exploding. Mom's newest post already spreading. My daughter's suing her parents. Some hearts are colder than money. But this time, the comments were different. Cousins. Neighbors. Didn't she pay for your medical bills? Isn't that the tuition girl? The narrative was shifting. The family legend rewriting itself in real time. I watched the light fade outside, the day closing like a file. Somewhere out there, they were panicking, spinning new stories. Inside, I opened my laptop and forwarded everything to Tessa screenshots, posts, messages. Good, she texted back. Keep everything documented. Tomorrow we file the claim for inheritance fraud. I stared at the glowing words on my screen. Fraud. The word was ugly but accurate. For years, love had been their con. Now it was their crime. The house was quiet again, the same silence as that first night. Only this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I whispered into it, not for them, but for myself. Fixing done. And for the first time, I believed it. The day the court order went through, the sky was clear and almost too blue, the kind of color that feels like an insult when your world has just shifted. Tessa called early, her tone calm, professional, a smile tucked behind every word. It's done. Lila, assets frozen, the deed's yours. You're clear. Clear. The word hung in the air like a language I hadn't spoken before. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat there for a long moment, letting the quiet settle around me. No buzzing phone, no guilt thickening the air. Just quiet. By evening, I'd boxed the last of my things and moved into a small apartment downtown. Nothing grand white walls, sunlight spilling through tall windows, the hum of traffic below. Peace didn't look like I imagined. It looked ordinary. That was its beauty. I unpacked a single mug, poured coffee, and sat on the floor by the window. My laptop rested beside me, still open to the ledger that had once been my life's map. I stared at it, scrolling through line after line of numbers, stories, sacrifices. Then, without ceremony, I pressed delete. The file disappeared in an instant. Watching it vanish didn't hurt. It felt like an exhale years overdue. A week later, word drifted through the family chain Mom and Dad were renting a small house on the edge of town. Caroline was working part-time at a store she hated. There was no satisfaction in it, only distance, the kind that keeps peace intact. That night, I drove to Grandma Rose's grave, tulips on the seat beside me. The air smelled of pine and memory. I knelt, brushed the leaves from her headstone, and whispered, "It's done. They can't touch what you built anymore." The wind lifted my hair, soft and certain, like an answer, driving home. I didn't think about revenge or justice or proof. I thought about the quiet, the stillness of a life no longer built around someone else's emergencies. At home, I opened the window. The city hummed below, steady and indifferent. I whispered into the night. Peace isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, earned, and for the first time, I believed I deserved it.